Buckle up, because what starts at a party ends in total emotional wreckage. Here's how it went down. Her lipstick was smeared. It's not in a careless way, but in the way that says I've been whispering too closely to someone who's not my husband. 8. The first thing I noticed when she walked out of the guest room, I was standing by the bookshelf pretending to read titles I couldn't focus on. A jazz remix of something played softly from a corner speaker. People around me were too busy laughing over overpriced cocktails to notice her, but I noticed everything. Her hair was a little messier than when we arrived. Her necklace had shifted lower, and her smile looked like it had something to hide. She froze when she saw me. For a fraction of a second, her eyes widened like a guilty child. Then just as fast, she adjusted, tilted her head, smiled, blew a casual kiss across the room like nothing happened. I didn't smile back. I didn't confront her. I just walked past the bar, through the arched doorway, and out into the cool night, like a ghost, leaving its own body behind. No shouting, no drama, no scene. By the time she finished her drink and noticed I was gone, I was already driving past a row of streetlights that blinked like warnings I never saw coming. She didn't text. She didn't call. Maybe she thought I was being sensitive. Maybe she thought I hadn't seen what I'd seen. But I had. What she didn't know, what no one at that party knew, was that 15 minutes earlier, I had gone looking for a restroom and found something else entirely. I had opened the wrong door. Or maybe in some twisted way, it was the right one. And behind it, her pressed against a bookshelf. Some guy I didn't recognize had his hand on her waist, laughing like he owned the moment. They weren't kissing. Not yet. But they were close. Too close. I didn't make a sound. I didn't gasp. I didn't even blink. I just closed the door as gently as I'd opened it. And suddenly, the hallway felt colder, narrower, like the walls themselves had watched what I saw and recoiled. That was 37 minutes before she walked out of that room and pretended nothing had happened. That was 37 minutes before I decided I was done pretending to. I didn't sleep that night, not even for a second. I lay on the couch in total darkness, fully dressed, shoes still on. The house creaked the way old houses do when they know something's broken, but can't speak. And me, I just listened to the silence like it was telling me everything I didn't want to hear. I kept replaying that hallway moment in my head. The way some people obsess over missed opportunities, the way he leaned into her, the casualness of it, the way she smiled. It wasn't a drunken mistake. It wasn't some misunderstanding. It was deliberate, familiar, practiced. She didn't stumble in until sometime 2 a.m. I heard the front door creak open. I heard her heels pause at the threshold like she was checking. If I was awake, I stayed frozen on the couch, eyes half shut, barely breathing. She didn't say anything. She just tiptoed into the kitchen, opened the fridge, then paused. No clinking bottles, no glass pouring, just a long pause. And then I heard the first sob, not loud, not theatrical, just that soft, cracking inhale of someone whose chest is collapsing. From the inside out, I wanted to get up. I wanted to ask her why. I wanted to yell, to scream, to beg for something that would make it hurt less. But I didn't move. I lay there like a man halfway buried in his own life. She collapsed onto the floor. I heard it, a dull thud followed by stifled weeping. She was crying like I'd already left her. But I was still there, still in the same house, still under the same roof, still pretending I was asleep while my wife grieved over a disaster she had created. The next morning, I got up before her. I made coffee, which I didn't drink, just let it sit there steaming in the cold air. I stared at it like it might give me answers. She came into the kitchen with her mascara still smeared from the night. Before, no words yet, just a look. I didn't ask her anything, didn't tell her what I saw. Instead, I handed her a cup, then walked away without a word. She followed me into the hallway. "Clive," she said. My name small, like it didn't fit her mouth anymore. I turned, but didn't speak. She looked like she wanted to say something, but the words couldn't form. She was searching my face for a version of myself I wasn't wearing anymore. "You left the party early," she finally whispered. I nodded. That was all I gave her. She opened her mouth again, but nothing came. Just silence, like even her excuses knew better than to come out now. I walked out the front door and let it close behind me. Not a slam, not a bang, just a quiet click that sounded more final than anything I could have said. I drove with no destination. Just kept going through town, past empty fields, through places that didn't know either of us. I parked in an empty lot outside a laundromat I hadn't been to since college and sat in the car for over an hour, staring at the raindrops gathering on the windshield like they were counting down something I hadn't yet figured out. When I finally came home, she wasn't in the living room. She was in the bedroom, sitting on the edge of the bed, with that same green dress she'd worn to the party, now folded neatly beside her like a relic from a crime scene. I stepped inside. She looked up at me. Her eyes were red, her voice shaking. "Do you want to talk?" I should have said yes, but I didn't, not yet, because I wasn't sure if I wanted the truth or revenge or to hear her lie, just to see how far she'd go. And that scared me more than anything. The thing about betrayal is that it doesn't just echo in your head. It infects the mundane. I couldn't sit on our couch anymore without imagining her texting him while I was making dinner. I couldn't pass the mirror in the hallway without wondering if she'd looked into it after sneaking back home, rehearsing her face so I wouldn't suspect. Even the mug she used that morning? My mug, the chipped one I always used on Sundays, felt like it had been touched by someone else now. Nothing was clean. Not really. I didn't speak to her for 2 more days, not in anger, not as punishment. I just couldn't. Words felt too heavy, like anything I said might either break me open or give her space to lie her way back in. And I wasn't ready for either. She tried, though, little things, leaving folded laundry on the bed, texting me things like, "I made your favorite tonight," or "We need milk," but it was all noise, mechanical. As if pretending we were still married might rewind the tape. It was Friday afternoon when I finally broke the silence, but not in the way she expected. I came home early. The key stuck a bit in the lock, like even the house wasn't sure it wanted me back in. I stepped into the kitchen and saw her sitting at the table, laptop open, phone face down. She jumped when she saw me, then smiled. Too wide, too ready. I didn't say hello. Instead, I walked to the fridge, opened it, stared inside for longer than necessary, then closed it. "You okay?" she asked softly, standing now. "You've been quiet." I turned to face her. "What's his name?" Her face froze just for a second. But enough. Her eyes darted left, then back to me. "What are you talking about?" That sentence, "What are you talking about?" It's the anthem of the guilty. I didn't answer. I just stared at her, waiting for the truth to grow too loud to ignore. "You've been distant," she added. Maybe we need to talk to someone." "Talk to someone?" I laughed. It wasn't even a real laugh, cracked halfway out like a snapped bone. Like a therapist, or maybe Thorne, or that guy in the burgundy blazer. She said nothing, just blinked once, twice, then sat down again like her. Knees gave out beneath her. I watched her eyes fill with water, but still no confession, just silence. "No, I'm sorry. No, it was a mistake. No, it meant nothing." Just a woman caught in a moment she thought she'd never have to explain. And that was when I knew there wasn't just one secret. There were layers, lies built on lies. And she was still, trying to figure out which ones I had seen. I leaned on the counter, arms crossed. "You're not even going to ask me what I saw, are you?" She shook her head, slow and ashamed. "I don't know where to start." That was the closest thing to honesty I'd heard from her in weeks. I nodded, then picked up her phone and placed it in front of her. "Unlock it." Her hands trembled. "Clive, unlock it." She stared at me, a long, painful stare. Then reluctantly, she tapped in her code. I scrolled, messages deleted, photos empty. Call log wiped, but she forgot something. People always do. I opened her cloud backup. Recent login showed a sync to an old iPad, one we hadn't used in months. I walked to the hallway closet, dug it out from a bin-labeled garage sale, maybe, and powered it on. No password. And just like that, it all unfolded. Photos, messages, voice memos, and a note saved under the name Plan B. I didn't read it all. Not yet, because the first line was enough to split me in half. If Clive ever finds out, I'll say it was emotional that we only kissed. He'll forgive that. I closed the iPad, looked at her. She wasn't crying anymore. She was staring at me like a widow watching her own funeral. I didn't say a word for the next 5 minutes. That may not sound like much, but 5 minutes of silence while sitting across from someone who just lied to your face for months feels like a lifetime. She didn't move, didn't breathe.
Ow.
I think she was trying to figure out whether to cry, confess, or run. I slid the iPad back across the table. I didn't open the note again. I didn't need to. That one line, if Clive ever finds out, wasn't just a betrayal. It was strategy. It was proof that she had anticipated this moment, planned for it, rehearsed it, and now that it was here, she looked like a bad actress caught mid-scene with no script left to save her. She reached out toward the iPad slowly, like it might explode. Her lips parted, then closed, then opened again. "It's not what you think," she said. Her voice was small, barely more than a whisper. "Then what is it?" I asked, not because I needed clarity, but because I wanted to watch her dance her way around the truth. Her hands started shaking again. It wasn't supposed to go that far. There it was. It's the phrase, the universal signal of guilt. Not supposed to go that far, like that made anything better. It's like betrayal has a speed limit. And if you just tap the brakes at the right moment, it's still forgivable. Ow. I stood up. She flinched, not from fear. I've never raised a hand to her in my life. But from the weight of the moment, she knew I was past the point of hearing excuses. "I need air," I said. I walked outside and sat on the porch. The wind was biting, sky gray, smelled like rain, but nothing fell. It was the kind of afternoon where even the weather couldn't decide what it wanted to be. I just stared out at the street, watching leaves scatter across the pavement like pieces of my own life being blown in all directions. A few minutes later, the front door creaked open. She sat beside me. Not too close, not touching. "I was lonely," she finally said. "You work so much, you come home and you're exhausted. And I didn't feel like a person anymore. I felt like furniture." I looked at her slow. Furniture doesn't write Plan B notes. She shut her eyes, breathed in, held it, and exhaled like she'd been underwater for weeks. "I didn't love him," she said. "I didn't ask that. I didn't sleep with him." The words came fast. Defensive practiced. "You didn't sleep with him, but you had enough emotional depth to create a backup plan." She turned her head away, ashamed. "I was scared you'd leave me." I laughed. A bitter, quiet laugh. "So, your solution was to lie to me and get close to someone else just in case?" She didn't reply. I pulled my phone out and showed her the photos from the iPad. I'd already saved to my cloud just in case she decided to wipe that too. One was a picture of her sitting in the passenger seat of a car that wasn't mine, her hand on the steering wheel while the driver leaned over, his hand resting dangerously close to her knee. Another was a screenshot of messages, one from her that said, "He's so checked out lately, he won't even notice I'm gone." I hadn't seen that one until I pulled it up just then. It hit like a slow-moving train. She buried her face in her hands. "Clive, I didn't mean it. I was venting. I was angry. You're lying then or now?" Silence. "Who is he?" I asked. My voice wasn't angry. It was too hollow for that now. "Do I know him?" She nodded. "Just barely." And my stomach dropped. "No," I whispered. "Thorn," she said. "From the party." Of course it was. Mr. Too Many Teeth. Mr. Buddy. Mr. Burgundy Blazer. I wanted to scream, to punch something, to shatter a window just to hear something break. That wasn't me, but I didn't. I just sat there stunned into stillness, like my entire body had been unplugged from reality. "I only saw him a few times," she said quickly. "It didn't, Clive. It didn't matter." I looked at her and said the one thing I hadn't dared admit out loud until now. It mattered to me. She started crying again, but this time I didn't reach for her. Didn't comfort her because I realized something in that moment. I'd been mourning this marriage long before the party and I didn't even know it. I don't know what pushed me back inside the house. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was that kind of numbness you get after crying without tears. The kind where everything hurts but nothing bleeds. She stayed on the porch as I stepped inside. I didn't tell her to follow me. I didn't tell her anything. The house felt heavier than before, as if all the lies floating in the air had finally settled into the furniture. I walked down the hall slowly, my fingers brushing the wall like I needed to steady myself for whatever came next. I passed the bedroom and paused. Something had been nagging me for days. Not just the betrayal itself, but the pacing of it. The way she tried to smooth things over, the weird glances, the awkward pauses in conversations the past few months. Her sudden habit of locking her phone in a drawer while showering, all of it added up to something bigger than one affair. So I went to the one place I hadn't looked yet, our shared closet. It wasn't locked. It never was. But I realized that, for years, I hadn't really paid attention to her side. You think you know your spouse's stuff, but you don't. Not when you're coasting through routine. I rummaged past her coats, a stack of scarves, an old yoga mat. Then I saw the shoebox. It wasn't dusty. It wasn't tucked away. It was right there on the top shelf, almost waiting to be discovered. I pulled it down, opened the lid, and found letters, printed emails, receipts, hotel booking confirmations, photos. My heart nearly stopped. There were printed exchanges between her and Thorne going back more than 8 months. Conversations where they flirted, made plans, joked about me. One message from her read, "Clive still thinks I'm doing late-night accounting runs for the firm. Poor guy." And then one photo that didn't make sense. It wasn't with Thorne. It was with another man, a man I did recognize. Harvey, my coworker. Not even someone she knew through me, someone I had introduced her to at my office holiday party. Last year, he was in a flannel shirt and jeans, sitting beside her at a small diner table. She was laughing, touching his hand, her face glowing in a way I hadn't seen in years. The caption she wrote on the back said, "The one I actually wanted." I couldn't breathe. I sat on the edge of the bed, the box open on my lap, as the truth wrapped itself around me like a slow, cruel vine. This wasn't one mistake. This wasn't a lapse of judgment or emotional weakness. This was a life within a life. A shadow marriage growing alongside mine. When she finally came in from the porch, she stopped in the doorway, her eyes locked on the box in my hands, and I saw her soul just drain. Like everything she'd rehearsed to say had no purpose anymore. "I can explain," she whispered. "You'll have to pick one of them to explain first," I replied. "Thorne, Harvey, the notes, or how long you've been planning your exit." Her face crumbled. "It's not what you think." "No," I said, standing. "It's exactly what I think. You didn't fall into this. You built it carefully, quietly. While I was busy believing in us, you were building escape routes." She covered her mouth and turned away like she was trying to escape the words before they landed. But they already had. There was no coming back from this now. It's not because of the cheating, not even because of the lies, but because I saw it in her eyes. She had stopped loving me a long time ago and just never told me. The strangest part wasn't the heartbreak. It was the stillness that came after. No rage, no shouting. Just the quiet understanding that my reality had already been stripped for parts, and I'd been the last one to notice. She didn't follow me when I left the bedroom. She didn't beg. She didn't throw herself on the floor or deliver some dramatic monologue about second chances. And that silence, that awful, cowardly silence, told me everything I needed to know about who she was when I wasn't looking. I didn't pack a bag, not even a change of clothes. What I did instead was walk down into the basement and open the file cabinet that held the one thing she never cared to learn about. Our financials. She always joked that I was the boring one, the spreadsheet guy, the man with 6 different retirement calculators bookmarked. But boring has its advantages, especially when you've been quietly saving in an account your wife never asked about because she assumed. She already had you wrapped around her finger. For a long time she did, but she never knew about the envelope labeled December. I took it. Inside were my passport, a backup debit card, and a small key to a lockbox at my bank downtown. I created it 2 years ago when I first started feeling like something in our marriage was slipping. I told myself I was being paranoid, but apparently I was just early. I walked back upstairs. She was still in the bedroom doorway, arms crossed. like she was trying to hold herself together. Her eyes followed me, but she said nothing. Not even, "Where are you going?" I think some part of her wanted to see if I had the strength to leave. Spoiler, I did. I grabbed my car keys and walked. Out the front door, without looking back. And it felt nothing like I thought it would. There was no cinematic music, no lightning flash. Just the sound of my tires pulling out of the driveway while the home I thought. I'd grow old and disappeared behind me like the final scene in a plane no one clapped for. I didn't go to a hotel. I didn't go to my parents. Didn't crash on a friend's couch. Instead, I drove to a cabin upstate I had rented months ago for our anniversary weekend. She canceled last minute, said she had food poisoning. Now, I wondered, if food poisoning had a beard and drove a black truck? When I arrived, the cabin was dark and still. Key was right where the rental host said it'd be, in the metal lockbox beside the front door. I let myself in, dropped the envelope on the table, and just stood there. No furniture to betray me. No walls to whisper reminders of what I lost. Just wood, wind, and the distant sound of water beyond the trees. I lit a fire and sat in front of it for hours, thinking about how quietly people can fall out of love. It's not always a slam. Sometimes it's a door left cracked open for so long. The draft does all the work. Somewhere around 3 a.m., my phone buzzed. It was her. One word. Please. No explanation, no apology. Just that pathetic attempt at pulling on the thread she thought still connected us. I didn't reply, not because I didn't feel anything, because I felt too much, and I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of watching me bleed one more time. I turned off my phone, placed its screen down beside the fire, and finally allowed myself to feel what I hadn't been able to feel in weeks. Relief. Because for the first time in 12 years, I wasn't orbiting her anymore. I was alone, but I was free. 3 days passed before I returned. Not because I missed her, not because I needed closure, but because I had left behind something she didn't even know existed. An old storage drive in my desk drawer. It held backup. Files for my consulting clients. Some with sensitive data I couldn't risk losing in case things got messier. At that point, I didn't even consider the house mine anymore. It was just a place I used to know, a museum of conversations I used to believe in. When I pulled into the driveway, the porch light was still on. It was mid-afternoon, but something about the artificial glow made the house feel off, as if it had been waiting with bated breath, stuck in the same broken loop since I left. Her car was there. The curtains in the living room were drawn, and on the front step, there was a small cardboard box sealed with red tape and labeled in her handwriting. Clive, I didn't pick it up. Not yet. I unlocked the door and stepped inside, half expecting her to be waiting in the kitchen with some faux poetic apology, or maybe just a suitcase and a key. But the silence hit harder than any scream would have. The air smelled like burned lavender candles and stale tears. A plate of untouched food sat on the dining table. Half-wilted salad, untouched wine, fork angled just so.
Oh.
Like she had set the stage for reconciliation and lost the courage to act it out. I walked past it all and went straight to the study. Nothing had been moved. I opened the desk drawer, grabbed the flash drive, and turned to leave. But then I noticed the yellow legal pad sitting at the edge of the desk. It wasn't there before, her handwriting. I shouldn't have read it, but of course I did. Clive, I know you don't owe me anything. I know I ruined the parts of us you used to hold sacred. I know I shattered your trust and turned love into paperwork. I don't expect forgiveness. But I need you to understand one thing. I was never trying to replace you. I was trying to remember who I was before I forgot myself in your shadow. It wasn't your fault. You gave me consistency, peace, shelter. I just kept craving storms. That's on me. That's always been on me. I wanted to stop. I just didn't know how to leave the fire without burning everything around it, if you ever wonder. Whether I felt guilty, know that I still hear your voice when I close my eyes. You were never invisible to me. You were just too kind to see how visible I had made myself to others. I'm sorry I broke the safest place I've ever known. I don't remember sitting down, but suddenly I was in the chair, the paper shaking in my hand. I wasn't sure what the letter was supposed to do. Is it closure? A confession? An appeal to my empathy? or just her last attempt at controlling the narrative. I folded the note, slid it into my jacket, and walked out. The box on the porch was still there. I picked it up. No, it was heavier than expected. Inside my old college hoodie, a framed photo of us in Sedona from our 5th anniversary, the watch I thought I lost last year, and at the bottom, an envelope. This one wasn't labeled. I opened it cautiously. Inside was a bank receipt, a wire. Transfer from her personal account to me. Almost every cent from her private savings. No note attached, just the cold, sterile print-out of money moving away from her, and toward me like a debt finally acknowledged. Or maybe just guilt dressed as generosity. For the first time since I walked out of that party, I felt something dangerous rising inside me. Pity not for her, but for the version of myself that would have fallen for this gesture. The man who might have thought this was redemption, but that man was gone.
Oh.
And in his place stood someone who wasn't begging for answers anymore. He was just preparing for what came next. I didn't respond to her message. I didn't return the letter. I didn't cash the wire transfer. Instead, I booked a one-way train ticket west somewhere quiet, somewhere with mountains, pine trees, and fewer ghosts. A place where I didn't have to explain why my smile sometimes faltered, or why I avoided the scent of her old perfume in department stores. I used the lockbox money to rent a small cottage near a lake. No internet, no buzz of urban life, just the sound of birds in the morning and the soft groan of the docks stretching beneath my feet at dusk. At first I thought I'd only stay a week. That was 3 months ago. Turns out healing doesn't happen in dramatic moments. Sneaks up on you in the calm between waves. I started painting again just for myself. It's just ugly amateur landscapes that no one will ever see. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I had to be impressive or clever or enough. I just existed. And somehow that was more than I thought I deserved. I never saw M. Bell again. I heard from a mutual friend that she sold the house, moved to towns over, and started therapy. She apparently tells people she lost a good man. I guess she's not wrong, but I don't hate her. Not anymore. Because the truth is, we don't always get the apology we want. We don't always see justice delivered like a well-wrapped package. Sometimes closure is just the decision to no longer open doors that only lead to fire. And me, I chose the door that opened to peace. I don't know if I'll fall in love again, but I know now what I deserve, and I know I'll never settle for less again. Not from someone else, and definitely not from myself. Thanks for listening to my story. Now, I want to hear yours. What moment in your life completely changed how you saw someone you loved? Share it in the comments. And if this story meant something to you, even a little, don't forget to like, subscribe,